Marcus had lost everything: his job, his wife, his daughter. Working as a security guard just to survive, he was invisible to everyone. But when bullets started flying in that elevator, the broken man nobody believed in became the hero who would change everything. One split second. One choice. Before watching full story, comment below from where you're watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Marcus Williams stood in the empty apartment, holding the divorce papers with shaking hands. The silence was deafening. Just hours ago, this place had been filled with the laughter of his 5-year-old daughter Emma and the warmth of what he thought was a happy marriage. Now Sarah was gone and she had taken Emma with her. "You're a failure, Marcus." Sarah's words echoed in his mind. "You can't even hold down a decent job." "I'm not raising my daughter in poverty." Marcus crumpled the papers and threw them across the room. He had lost his job as an engineer 3 months ago when the company downsized. Despite sending out hundreds of applications, he couldn't find work that paid enough to support his family. Sarah had grown tired of waiting, tired of struggling, and tired of him. The worst part wasn't losing his wife, it was losing Emma. Sarah had moved across the country to live with her wealthy parents, taking his little girl 2,000 miles away. The court had given him visitation rights, but how could he afford plane tickets when he could barely pay for groceries? Marcus walked to Emma's empty bedroom and picked up her favorite stuffed bear from the floor. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he remembered tucking her in just last week, promising her that everything would be okay. He had lied to his own daughter. "Daddy will make this right, sweetheart," he whispered to the empty room. "I promise." 6 months later, Marcus was working as a security guard at the Meridian Tower, a gleaming skyscraper in downtown Chicago. It wasn't the career he had dreamed of, but it paid the bills and gave him time to keep job hunting. Every penny he earned went toward his tiny studio apartment and saving for a plane ticket to see Emma. The other security guards looked down on him. They knew he was overqualified, that he had once worn suits and designed complex systems instead of wearing a uniform and watching monitors. But Marcus didn't care about their whispers. He had only one goal: getting his daughter back. His supervisor, Joe Martinez, was particularly cruel. "College boy thinks he's better than us," Joe would say loud enough for everyone to hear. "Wait until you've been doing this for 20 years like me. Then we'll see how smart you are." Marcus endured the harassment in silence. He needed this job no matter how much his pride suffered. Every insult was worth it if it meant seeing Emma's smile again. Late one evening, as Marcus walked his rounds through the empty office floors, he called Emma on his old cell phone. Sarah only allowed him to speak to her twice a week for 15 minutes. "Daddy, when are you coming to see me?" Emma's sweet voice made his heart ache. "Soon, baby girl. Daddy's saving money for a big airplane trip. Mommy says you don't have enough money because you're not smart like her new boyfriend." Marcus closed his eyes, pain shooting through his chest. Sarah was already poisoning Emma against him. "Your daddy loves you more than anything in the world." "Emma, don't ever forget that. I love you too. Daddy, I miss our bedtime stories." When the call ended, Marcus sat on the floor of the empty hallway and cried. He was losing his daughter piece by piece, and he felt powerless to stop it. 3 weeks later, Marcus noticed something strange. A man in a black coat had been hanging around the building's lobby for several days. The man always wore sunglasses and kept his head down, but Marcus's trained eye caught the suspicious behavior. Marcus reported it to Joe Martinez, but his supervisor just laughed. "You're being paranoid, college boy. Not everyone's a terrorist just because you're scared of your own shadow." But Marcus's instincts were screaming danger. He had studied security protocols in his engineering days and knew the signs of surveillance. Someone was planning something. On Friday morning, Marcus overheard 2 maintenance workers talking in hushed tones near the service elevator. "Tomorrow at 2 p.m., one said, "when she goes to the 47th floor for the monthly board meeting." "You sure about the timing?" the other asked. Rodriguez confirmed it. "She always takes the express elevator alone." Marcus's blood ran cold. They were talking about Victoria Sinclair, the CEO of Meridian Industries. She was known for taking the express elevator to the top floors for important meetings, and she always traveled without bodyguards inside the building, trusting the security system. Marcus tried to report the conversation to Joe, but again his supervisor dismissed him. "You're hearing things, Williams. Those guys have worked here for years. Stop trying to cause trouble." Frustrated and worried, Marcus decided to take matters into his own hands. He would keep extra watch on Saturday, even though it was his day off. Saturday afternoon, Marcus positioned himself near the elevator bank on the ground floor. At 1:55 p.m., Victoria Sinclair walked through the lobby in her crisp business suit, her heels clicking confidently on the marble floor. Victoria was in her early 40s, with sharp eyes and an air of authority that commanded respect. She had built Meridian Industries from a small startup into a billion-dollar corporation through pure determination and brilliant business instincts. But today, she had no idea she was walking into a trap. Marcus watched as she pressed the button for the express elevator. As the doors opened, he saw the same maintenance worker from yesterday step out from behind a pillar, his hand reaching into his jacket. Time slowed down. Marcus saw the glint of metal as the man pulled out a gun. Victoria stepped into the elevator, completely unaware of the danger behind her. Without thinking, Marcus sprinted across the lobby. "Get down!" he shouted. The gunman spun around, surprised by Marcus's sudden appearance. For a split second, their eyes met, and Marcus saw the cold calculation of a killer. Marcus threw himself between Victoria and the gunman just as the first shot rang out. The bullet tore through his shoulder, spinning him around, but he stayed on his feet. With his good arm, he shoved Victoria deeper into the elevator and slammed his fist on the close door button. The second shot hit Marcus in the chest as the elevator doors began to close. He collapsed to his knees, but he had bought precious seconds. The doors sealed shut just as the gunman fired a third shot that sparked harmlessly off the metal. As the elevator carried Victoria to safety, Marcus collapsed on the lobby floor, his blood spreading across the white marble. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was the gunman running toward the exit. His plan ruined by the sacrifice of a security guard he had never met. Marcus woke up 3 days later in Chicago General Hospital. His chest was wrapped in bandages and his left arm was in a sling. Every breath sent sharp pains through his ribs. But he was alive. The first face he saw was Victoria Sinclair's. She was sitting beside his bed, still wearing the same business suit from Saturday, though now it was wrinkled and stained with his blood. "You saved my life," she said softly, her usual commanding voice replaced by something gentler. Marcus tried to speak, but his throat was dry. Victoria quickly poured water from a pitcher and held the cup to his lips. "The doctors say you'll make a full recovery," she continued. "The bullet missed your heart by 2 inches. You're incredibly lucky." "Did they
catch him?"
Marcus whispered. Victoria nodded. "The police arrested him and 2 accomplices. They were hired by a rival company trying to force a hostile takeover. If I had died, the board would have panicked and sold." Marcus closed his eyes, relieved that the danger was over. "I have so many questions," Victoria said. "Why did you risk your life for someone you barely knew? Joe Martinez told me you'd been reporting suspicious activity for weeks. Why didn't anyone listen to you?" Marcus looked at her, seeing something in her eyes he hadn't expected, genuine curiosity and respect. "I have a daughter," he said simply. "If something happened to her mother, I'd want someone to protect her." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "Tell me about your daughter." For the next hour, Marcus found himself opening up to this powerful woman about Emma, about his divorce, about his struggles to rebuild his life. Victoria listened without judgment, occasionally asking questions that showed she was truly interested in his story. "I was an engineer," Marcus explained.
"Lost my job, lost my family.
"Now I'm just trying to earn enough money to see my little girl again." Victoria's expression grew thoughtful. "What kind of engineering?" "Systems design. I specialized in security protocols and automated systems." Marcus managed a weak smile. Guess that training came in handy after all. When visiting hours ended, Victoria stood to leave. "Get some rest, Marcus. We'll talk more tomorrow." As she reached the door, she turned back. "By the way, you're not just anything. You're a hero." The next morning, Victoria returned with a large bouquet of flowers and a stack of newspapers. The headline of the Chicago Tribune read, "Security Guard Saves CEO's Life in Heroic Act." "You're famous," Victoria said, showing Marcus the article. "The story is all over the news. The mayor wants to give you a key to the city." Marcus barely glanced at the newspapers. "I don't want to be famous. I just want to see my daughter." Victoria sat down and pulled her chair closer to the bed. "About that, I did some research yesterday." She opened a folder and pulled out several documents. "I know about your custody situation. I know Sarah took Emma to California. I also know you've been saving every penny to visit her. Marcus felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment. You didn't need to. Let me finish, Victoria said firmly, her CEO voice returning. I also looked into your employment history. You weren't just any engineer. You designed the security system for 3 major corporate headquarters. Your work was brilliant. She pulled out another document. Marcus Williams, I'm offering you a job. Marcus stared at her in confusion. A job? Chief Security Officer for Meridian Industries. Starting salary, $180,000 a year plus benefits plus a signing bonus of $50,000. Victoria's eyes sparkled with excitement. You'll oversee security for all our facilities worldwide. It's a position that was created specifically for you. Marcus felt dizzy, and not just from his injuries. I don't understand. Why would you do this? Victoria leaned forward. Because you saved my life. But more than that, you have skills we need and integrity that can't be taught. You saw a threat that trained security professionals missed. You acted when others ignored you. That's exactly what I need in a security chief. Marcus stared at the job offer, hardly able to believe the numbers he was seeing. This is enough to hire the best lawyers, fight for joint custody, and bring Emma to Chicago? Yes, it is, Victoria smiled. There's more. The company has the excellent school district partnership program. If Emma comes to live with you, she'll have access to the best private schools in the city. Tears began rolling down Marcus's cheeks. After months of feeling hopeless, powerless, and defeated, suddenly the impossible was within reach. There's one condition, Victoria said seriously. Marcus's heart sank. Of course there was a catch. You have to promise me you'll never risk your life so carelessly again. Next time something like this happens, you call for backup and wait for proper support. I can't have my security chief getting shot on his first week. Marcus laughed despite his tears. I promise. Victoria stood up and extended her hand. Do we have a deal, Mr. Williams? Marcus shook her hand with his good arm. We have a deal, Ms. Sinclair. 2 weeks later, Marcus was released from the hospital and immediately threw himself into his new role. Victoria had been right. His engineering background made him uniquely qualified to assess security weaknesses that others missed. Within his first month, he had identified and fixed 12 potential vulnerabilities across Meridian's properties, but his real focus was on Emma. With his new salary and signing bonus, Marcus hired Catherine Morrison, one of Chicago's top family law attorneys. Your case is complex, Catherine explained during their first meeting. Your ex-wife moved Emma across state lines and has been working to alienate her from you. However, you now have stable employment and substantial income. More importantly, the recent media attention has painted you as a hero and responsible father. The custody battle was brutal. Sarah's lawyer painted Marcus as an unstable man who had put himself in dangerous situations, arguing that Emma would be at risk living with him. They brought up his months of unemployment and claimed he was an unfit parent. But Catherine was fierce in his defense. She presented evidence of Marcus's heroic actions, his steady employment history, and his unwavering commitment to his daughter. She also revealed that Sarah's new boyfriend had a criminal record for domestic violence, something Sarah had hidden from the courts. During the hearings, Victoria surprised everyone by appearing as a character witness for Marcus. Your Honor, she testified, Marcus Williams is a man of extraordinary integrity and courage. He risked his life to save mine without expecting anything in return. In the 6 months he's worked for me, he has shown himself to be responsible, dedicated, and thoughtful in every decision he makes. Any child would be fortunate to have him as a father. The judge was clearly impressed by Victoria's testimony. It wasn't often that a billionaire CEO took time from her schedule to appear in family court for an employee. After 3 months of legal battles, the judge made his ruling. Marcus would have joint custody of Emma, with her living in Chicago during the school year and spending summers with Sarah in California. When Catherine called with the news, Marcus broke down and cried in his office. Victoria found him there an hour later, still clutching the phone. Good news? She asked gently. She's coming home, Marcus whispered. Emma's coming home. Emma's first day in Chicago was everything Marcus had dreamed of and more. She ran into his arms at the airport, and for the first time in over a year, Marcus felt complete. Daddy, your apartment is so high up, Emma exclaimed as they entered his new place. Victoria had helped him find a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment near Lincoln Park, complete with a view of Lake Michigan. And look, sweetheart, Marcus said, opening the door to her new bedroom. This is all yours, Emma gasped. The room was painted pink with white furniture and shelves full of books and toys. Victoria had insisted on helping him decorate it, claiming she needed practice for when her own sister's children visited. "It's like a princess room," Emma squealed, running to hug her father. That night, as Marcus tucked Emma into her new bed and read her a story for the first time in over a year, he felt a peace he had forgotten existed. "Daddy," Emma said sleepily. "Are you still sad?" Marcus brushed her hair back from her forehead. "Not anymore, baby girl. As long as I have you, I'll never be sad again." "Good," Emma mumbled, already half asleep, "because you're the bravest daddy in the whole world." Over the following months, Victoria became a regular part of Marcus and Emma's life. What had started as professional respect had grown into genuine friendship. Victoria often joined them for dinner, and Emma adored her Aunt Victoria, who told fascinating stories about running a big company and traveling around the world. Marcus found himself looking forward to Victoria's visits more than he cared to admit. She was brilliant, kind, and surprisingly funny when she let her guard down. More importantly, she treated Emma like family, never talking down to her and always showing genuine interest in her drawings and school stories. One evening, as they watched Emma play in the park, Victoria turned to Marcus with a serious expression. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. "Of course. That day in the elevator, what went through your mind? When you saw the gun, why didn't you just call security or run away?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, watching Emma climb on the jungle gym. "I thought about Emma. I imagined if someone was trying to hurt her and a stranger had the chance to save her, I'd want that stranger to be brave enough to act." Victoria nodded slowly. "You know, I've spent my whole life building walls around myself. I trusted my security, my systems, my money to protect me. But when it really mattered, none of that helped. Only you did. You would have done the same thing," Marcus said. Victoria shook her head. "I don't think I would have. I was so focused on my meeting, my schedule, my problems that I didn't even notice the danger. You saw what others missed because you care about people, not just yourself." As the sun set over the park, Marcus realized that somewhere along the way, he had stopped thinking of Victoria as his boss and started thinking of her as something much more important: family. A year after the elevator incident, Victoria threw a party to celebrate the anniversary of what she called the day my life really began. The event was held at her penthouse, with stunning views of the Chicago skyline. Marcus felt nervous as he straightened his tie. This was the first formal event he'd attended since before his divorce, and he wasn't sure he belonged among Victoria's wealthy friends and business associates. "Daddy, you look handsome," Emma said, spinning in her new dress. Victoria had insisted on buying it for her, claiming every princess needed a party dress. When they arrived at the penthouse, Marcus was amazed by how many people were there. Colleagues from Meridian Industries, city officials, police officers who had worked on the case, and even some of the hospital staff who had treated Marcus. But the biggest surprise was Joe Martinez, Marcus's former supervisor from the security company. He approached Marcus hesitantly, looking uncomfortable in his ill-fitting suit. "Marcus," Joe said, extending his hand, "I owe you an apology. I should have listened to you. I let my pride and jealousy cloud my judgment, and it almost got Ms. Sinclair killed." Marcus shook his hand without hesitation. "We all make mistakes, Joe. What matters is learning from them." Joe nodded gratefully. "Ms. Sinclair offered me a job with Meridian's security team. She said you recommended me despite everything. I don't understand why." Marcus smiled. "Because good people deserve second chances." Later in the evening, Victoria stood up to give a speech. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. "A year ago, I thought I had everything," she began. "Success, money, power. But I was wrong. I had built a life based on fear. Fear of failure, fear of trusting others, fear of showing weakness." Victoria's eyes found Marcus in the crowd. Then a stranger proved that real strength isn't about protecting yourself. It's about protecting others. Marcus Williams didn't just save my life that day. He taught me what it means to be truly courageous. The crowd applauded, but Victoria held up her hand for silence. "Marcus, you've become more than just an employee. You and Emma have become family, which is why I have something important to ask you." Marcus felt his heart start racing as Victoria walked toward him through the crowd. "For the past year, you've shown me what love really looks like. It's not just romantic feelings. It's choosing to put someone else's happiness before your own every single day. You do that for Emma, and somehow you've started doing it for me too. Victoria stopped in front of Marcus and took his hands in hers. The entire room was holding its breath. Marcus Williams, I know this is unconventional. I know I'm supposed to let you ask me. But I'm a CEO, and I'm used to going after what I want. Victoria's voice was shaking slightly. Will you marry me? Marcus stared at her in shock. Around them, the crowd began to murmur excitedly. Emma jumped up and down, clapping her hands. Say yes, Daddy, Emma shouted. Say yes to Aunt Victoria. Marcus looked at this incredible woman who had changed his life in every possible way. Victoria, who could have any man in the world, was choosing him. Not because he was wealthy or powerful, but because he had shown her what real love looked like. Yes, he said, his voice barely a whisper, then louder. Yes, Victoria Sinclair, I will marry you. The crowd erupted in cheers as Victoria threw her arms around Marcus's neck and kissed him. Emma ran up and hugged both of their legs, completing their little family circle. Marcus stood in the doorway of Emma's bedroom, watching his 10-year-old daughter help her baby brother take his first steps. Little Michael tottered between Emma's outstretched arms and Victoria's encouraging smile. Come on, Mikey, Emma called. You can do it! Michael took 3 wobbly steps before falling onto his bottom with a giggle. Victoria scooped him up and covered his face with kisses while Emma clapped excitedly. Did you see, Daddy? Emma called. Mikey walked. Marcus smiled and entered the room. I saw, sweetheart. He's getting so big. Victoria looked up at her husband with the same love and admiration she had shown him for the past 5 years. Their marriage had been everything Marcus had never dared to dream of. A partnership built on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine affection. How was work? Victoria asked, passing Michael to Marcus for his turn at cuddles. Good. The new Chicago headquarters security system is finally complete. It's going to be the most advanced in the world. Marcus bounced Michael gently, making the baby laugh. Emma looked up from her coloring book with a serious expression. Daddy, will you tell Mikey the story about how you saved Mommy Victoria in the elevator? Marcus and Victoria exchanged a smile. It had become Emma's favorite bedtime story, how her daddy had been a hero and saved her new mommy, and how that brave act had brought their family together. Maybe when he's a little older. Sweetheart, Marcus said, but it's such a good story, Emma insisted. It has action and love and a happy ending. Victoria laughed. It is a good story. But you know what the best part is? What? Emma asked. The happy ending is still happening, Victoria said, reaching over to take Marcus's free hand. Every day we get to write more of our story together. That night, after the children were asleep, Marcus and Victoria sat on their balcony overlooking the city lights. Marcus still sometimes couldn't believe this was his life. Married to an amazing woman, father to 2 beautiful children, successful in a career he loved, and financially secure enough to never worry about Emma's future. Do you ever regret it? Victoria asked quietly. Regret what? Taking that bullet. Everything that came after changed your whole life. Sometimes I wonder if you would have been happier with a simpler path. Marcus pulled his wife closer and kissed the top of her head. Victoria, that bullet didn't just save your life. It saved mine too. Before that day I was lost, broken, convinced I was a failure. You helped me see that I wasn't just surviving, I was capable of thriving. Victoria snuggled against his chest. We saved each other. Marcus looked out at the city where he had once felt so alone and hopeless. Now it was home. The place where he had found his purpose, his family, and his future. You know what I learned? Marcus said, What's that? Sometimes the worst moments of our lives are just the beginning of the best ones. We just have to be brave enough to act when it matters most. Victoria tilted her head up to look at him. And you, Marcus Williams, are the bravest man I know. As they sat together under the stars, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. He had started as a man who had lost everything. His job, his wife, his daughter, his self-respect. But in that split second when he chose to step in front of a bullet, he had found something worth more than anything he had lost. The power to choose love over fear, courage over safety, and hope over despair. The single dad who took a bullet for a stranger had become a hero not just for one moment, but for every day that followed. And in return he had received something far more valuable than gratitude. He had received a second chance at the life he had always wanted, surrounded by people who loved him not for what he could give them, but for who he chose to be. Their story had started with conflict, pain, and loss, but it had become something beautiful, a testament to the truth that sometimes the greatest acts of courage lead not just to saving someone else's life, but to discovering the life you were always meant to live. Marcus squeezed Victoria's hand and smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures, and new opportunities to be brave. But tonight, surrounded by the family that love had built, he was exactly where he belonged.